Hello everyone, welcome to A Good Night for a Murder, a Victorian true crime podcast. This is a Good Night snack episode available exclusively for my housekeeper and butler tier patrons. One of the reasons I started this podcast is because as much as I love a good ghost story, I always want to know the true story behind the story. And I was often surprised how far the facts of the matter were from the story that got me interested in the first place. Often the tall tales are vilifying someone who did nothing to deserve it. And I don't think that's right, and I want to set the record straight. So tonight, I'm going to tell you the truth about Bathsheba Sherman, who was depicted as a satanic baby-murdering witch in the 2013 movie The Conjuring. A Good Night for a Murder is a true crime podcast that does cover stories including death, violence, sexual assault, and other adult themes. Please take care while listening. To understand the contemporary interest in Bathsheba Sherman, we need to start with the Conjuring universe. The Conjuring universe is a trio of horror films, namely The Conjuring, released in 2013, The Conjuring 2, released in 2016, and The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, released in 2021. The story of Bathsheba Sherman was made famous in the first film. It tells a dramatized version of the supposed real-life events of the Perron family and demon hunters Ed and Lorraine Warren from the 1970s. In full transparency, I have never seen the Conjuring movies. I'm a fan of the classic horror films like Carrie or The Shining, and a lot of these modern films are just a little too much for me. So, even though I know a lot of people are familiar with the film, in case you're like me, I'll go ahead and read you a summary of the lore of Bathsheba Sherman as it was presented in The Conjuring. This is from villains.fandom.com. Bathsheba Sherman is the main antagonist of the 2013 film The Conjuring, the first installment in the Conjuring universe, which is loosely based on the true story of the haunting in Harrisville, Rhode Island. She is the evil spirit of an 1800s devil worshipper and witch. Bathsheba Sherman, born Thayer, was born in 1812, and she was claimed to be related to Mary Town Easty, one of the women that was executed for witchcraft during the Salem witch trials of 1692, implying that Bathsheba was one of Mary Town Easty's descendants. Bathsheba was a witch and fanatical worshiper of Satan. 51 years later, in 1863, when Bathsheba married a rich farmer named Judson Sherman, she gave birth to a baby. When her baby was a week old, Judson caught her sacrificing it in front of the fireplace to Satan. Exposed, Bathsheba ran out to a tree nearby a dock, climbed up to the top of it, proclaimed her love for Satan, and cursed anyone who would take her land. Bathsheba then hung herself, committing suicide. Bathsheba's evil spirit continued to reside in the land, haunting her former homestead. True to her curse, Bathsheba would haunt families that would move into her house. Bathsheba would torment the family continually and finally possess the family's mother to kill the children before forcing the mothers to commit suicide. The spirits of Bathsheba's victims continued to reside in the house along with her, living in constant fear of her and her curse. Hey everyone, it's Kim, and I wanted to let you know that you're listening to a preview of a Patreon-only series from A Good Night for a Murder called A Good Night Snack. This is the 5th episode in the series so far, with more to come each month, only available at the Housekeeper and Butler tier on Patreon. If you like the Victorian Society tips in the regular episodes, you're probably going to like these. In this series, I focus on profiling famous Victorian people, Victorian lifestyle and society rules, and more historical true crime that may not be enough to build an entire episode out of, but works for a quick Victorian true crime fix. Hence the series name, A Good Night Snack. So if you're enjoying the episode, I'm going to play a little bit more for you right now, but if you want to hear the whole thing and more like it, head over to my website at agoodnightforamurder.com, where you can find the link for my Patreon and join at the Housekeeper and Butler tier. Now, back to the story. So, just like Bathsheba Sherman was a real person, the Perron family are real people too. Consisting of Father Roger, Mother Carolyn, and their 5 daughters, Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cynthia, and April, the family moved into the circa 1763 14-room farmhouse on 200 acres on Round Top Road in Burrowville, Rhode Island in 1970. The family noticed strange things happening almost as soon as they moved in. Odd noises were heard coming from empty rooms, objects went missing or moved from place to place on their own, small piles of dirt would appear in the middle of the floor of a freshly swept room. The girls started reporting seeing spirits around the house. Many seemed benign, but some were angry. Other more frightening reports included sudden, overwhelming phantom smells of rotting flesh or their beds being lifted off the floors. Carolyn took it upon herself to research the house's history and discovered that many tragic deaths had occurred on the property, including children drowning in the nearby creek, more than one death by hanging in the attic, and even a murder. In speaking with a local historian, she learned about Bathsheba Sherman, who was said to be a violent and angry woman who enjoyed beating her farmhands in the 1800s. This has been a Good Night Snack episode from A Good Night for a Murder. To hear the full story and more like it, plus unlock the bonus content that accompanies each regular episode, head on over to my website at agoodnightforamurder.com and sign up for the Housekeeper and Butler tier on Patreon. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you again soon.